Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Mike.
Welcome back to the show. How was the S&M and Magic the Card Gathering Conference?
Some people call it Dragon Con and don't do either of those things while they're there.
Not many.
Sucks for them.
I was not one of them.
They're not going for the right reasons then.
Are you questioning why I went?
Oh, no, I know why you went. I'm just not going to make you have to state it for fact.
Why did I go?
Well, you do play Magic the Gathering, and I can assume the other half is true.
Neither of those things are true. I don't play Magic anymore.
But while you were gone, you did leave me hanging for the Sunburn.
Yeah. I mean,
we got nothing here. This isn't working.
Well, I
at
mean,
all.
you knew I wasn't going to be there. You knew it was happening. It wasn't.
We got nothing to work with here.
It wasn't like
let's just move
you were
on.
Surprised. I listened to the ad. I know how.
Let's talk about the easy asset creation in Sunburn.
Let's do that because this is getting awkward.
We've mentioned in the past of loading your models in Sunburn, but we want to point out that Sunburn provides native support for 3D Studio Max, Maya, XSI Mod Tool, Mondo, Blender, and several more of the 3D modeling packages. So whatever you're using, you probably already have. You don't have to futz around with some unupdated piece of crap that may or may not be included with the XNA framework and may or may not be developed half-assed by the company that creates the format. We're not going to name any companies.
Let's not, because
look at this desk I have right here. Look at this desk. Anyway, you could take care of all of that mess. Oh, that one finally clicked for you? Did that,
no,
that
I
dot
had
connect?
that. I just
Okay.
wondered how far you were going to take it. If you were just going to spell it out, or if you were going to slide it over there.
I should get like a picture
subtly.
of a car and put it on a desk and let you figure that one out. They can hide a lot of that, and that could be a lot of nightmare problems of getting the tool to load in XNA and load with the property set in the tool and get that to map in your game and set that out. And that's one of the pros of going with Sunburn is they have guys that's what they do. They figure that stuff out. They figure that stuff out for you, so you don't have to do that. And then when you are in game, we've mentioned this before, you have the 3D level up and everything. You just hit the F11 key and go into the level editor and place and scale and
set properties
on all these 3D objects while they're running. So you kind of tweak some of the values in your studio, your 3ds Max studio, because you're an indie developer with money or a BitTorrent account, either one, and you got it up and running. And you run down the hallway in your level, and you're like, that's not quite right. You can just hit F11, fix it,
move something
save
over.
it, go right on, and do it. So, let the Sunburn engine take care of some of that for you. And you can find out this and more and ask specifically what features of which tools are supported in the framework. Just go in the forums. One thing about the forums on synapsegaming.com, they are very helpful and very quick to ask. And they will deal with an idiot who keeps asking the same question over and over again, only slightly different because he doesn't quite get it. You could look up Vinyl in there and see exactly, like, wow, dude, they're still nice to him on that. So check out the Sunburn Gaming Engine at synapse.com. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. Tonight's guest is Colin Totten. Hello, Colin.
Hello.
All right, you didn't drop. Yay!
No, still here.
I did a horrible, horrible thing. I closed the window that had the name of your studio up.
It is ThotLab Games. T-H-O-T.
T-H-O-T. ThotLab Games.
Yes.
And you guys released on the service several months ago. I remember we played it. We did a trial of it. G.O.R.K.
Yep.
And, this kind of sets up one of the topics we were going to talk about on the show, or had queued up to maybe get to. G.O.R.K had some good progressive gameplay in it. It's a good game that starts off as one thing, and then kind of becomes something else later in the game.
Yes, that was a happy accident, is what that was.
Really? So what was the genesis behind that?
Well, I mean, it started off, as you guys mentioned in your review, it started off basically like Osmos. But But then, okay, so it started off with the two of us kind of programming it, and doing a lot of programmer art, and so we got to this point where, well, the game's pretty much done, and it was very much like Osmos. And we said, the game's kind of done, but it looks horrible because we are programmers. So we approached an art studio in town here, and they came on board with us, and they had all kinds of great ideas of what we should do with the game. And us not really being experienced at it, said, hey, yeah, we can do that. So it changed very, very drastically. Ended up being an almost entire code rewrite. It just became a horrible, horrible mess. But it turned out to be, a fun game anyway. So, and like I said, happy accident that people appreciated the progressive gameplay, and we were happy.
How did it do, if you don't mind saying?
As of yesterday, I think we have just short of 1,100 sales.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good.
Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
so
Xbox Live Indie games with no promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, like we've still got, of the 50 codes they gave us, I think we've probably got about 47 of them left. So.
Oh, see, there the accent came through. There, I called in a boot. But so Colin's up in Canada, and I'm going to represent tonight because I've got a Molson. Is what I'm drinking.
Sorry, did I drop a Canadianism there?
Well, you got an boot out in there, and we were talking before the show because he lives right next to Detroit, Michigan.
Oh,
not that far.
Interesting.
And I was like, yeah, you really don't sound Canadian.
Because I was thinking, I was like, wait, no, no, not quite American. Where are you?
One of these times we're going to have an actual guest in the United States, but that doesn't seem to happen that often. We get more X&A seems to be happening up in Canada and in England as far as what we're contacted into. So on G.O.R.K, you start out and you're in the little petri dish and it's an Osmos kind of thing. Cosmos, yep. Or Osmos or Osmosis or whatever those games are.
Osmos, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what the subgenre you call that to be. Little things sucking in little things, avoiding big things.
I will call them celluloids.
Celluloids? And then, you escape the petri dish and it becomes a little more level-based and platformer-ish kind of as you go on. But it layers it in slowly. And this week, I've been reading a theory of fun for game designers. I think that's the full title. I'll try to remember to get the book in the show notes, but it's an excellent book, and expect me to drop references to it, for the next 5 shows. One thing they talk about is taking something that is well known and understood, right? So Cosmos, take the Cosmos to Osmosis, whatever that is, and then just change it slightly. And then when, at the point that the player kind of figures out what the change is, change it slightly again. And then change it slightly again. Because what people are after is identifying and recognizing patterns. But people don't want new patterns, right? If it's a completely new pattern,
completely new learning curve.
It's frustrating, and I don't want to play with it, and it's difficult and dense. But if I understand it, then it's like people listen to the same music over and over again. They stay in the same genres and that kind of thing. So my cat's amazed that you're here, apparently, and he's going to complain about that. So G.O.R.K did that very well as far as like, hey, this is something dive right in, pick it right up, easy to play, easy to pick up because I already know this. And then,
or if you aren't familiar with the genre, like I haven't played Osmos, but I played a couple of kind of similar games. You can kind of pick it up in that first self-contained level.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're completely new to that concept, then that's a different case. But most people have played something like it that will come to it. And then you get out of the petri dish and it changes slightly, and then all of a sudden it becomes interesting again because it's a different pattern, and people love figuring out the pattern. Like under the core of everything, the book's premise is basically like, people are after these patterns, and they love subtle changes to patterns they already know, and when they figure those out, that's the endorphin run. The endorphins, flowing through. That's a feeling of joy and elation. It's like, aha, I figured out. I understand your system. However, once I understand your system, it'll become boring because I know this. I get this now. This is doing the same thing over and over again. I'm bored and I don't want to play your game anymore. And that's why you add another twist. That's why you just slightly...
What's a twist?
Yeah, keep the twist in there. And I thought it did very well. I fired it back up. I checked it out again. And, of course, I rewatched our trial on it because I always want to know, like, oh, geez, what did we say?
What did we say? See, this is what will force us to be less negative is starting to do developer interviews.
So, but what you were saying, Colin, there is, like, none of that was a conscious decision.
So not at first. Later on, when we were actually designing the levels and laying out where the enemies were going to be and things like that, we added some things, kind of try and do that, because actually I read that book about a year ago, the same one that you're talking about, and I didn't remember reading it at the time, but the concepts had obviously stuck, because when we were finishing up, we were really working hard at, changing it slightly every single level, or every couple levels, and maybe going back to something you were familiar with, but then throwing a curveball at you, the very next level. So.
Oh, all right. I thought that was done pretty well. So now you guys are working on Thunder in the Sky. Now that's a code name, right?
Yes.
So I didn't find any real details up on your blog about this one, other than that it existed and it was the next project, or you said earlier on the show the big project.
Yeah.
What is this?
So it is a steampunk theme airplane racing game where we're gonna do some multiplayer stuff in there. We're targeting a little bit higher than indie this time. We're trying to put something a little bit more polished together and kind of hoping for a little bit more. But indie's a good place to end up. We're happy on the indie channel for now because it's good exposure. But we'd like to target something obviously in the future. We've got plans. So, but yeah, so it's this kind of steampunk theme racing. I don't know if you guys are watching the XBLA stuff at all, but there's one coming out soon called, or it might even be out now, Skydrift. It's kind of similar to that, but totally different. So, it's, yeah. It's so far it's coming together nicely. It's a much bigger project. 3D. It's an in-house engine that we've developed. So it's a lot of work, but it's keeping us busy.
All right. That does sound kind of interesting. We played a game last week. It was the air game. What was the airplane?
No, it looked like a military thing.
Yeah, it looked like it wanted to be a combat air simulator game, but did not have the physics that you would expect to go with that.
Are you talking about Air Combat?
Yeah.
No, I don't think Air Combat was the name.
It was Air something.
Oh wait, yeah, Air Combat Desert Aces.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I saw your review on that, and it's actually pretty much nothing like that. Thankfully, because
are you going with the more arcade style controls? Is that what you're going to go for?
Right now we've got about 6 flight models that we've got together. Some of them are very physicsy, and some of them are more arcade-like. The problem is that if you're trying to play a racing game, the realistic physics are really, really hard to use.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the arcade ones just don't feel right. So it's hard to figure out, that balance between the two.
So basically, you're building multiple models and testing each of them out to figure out which one feels most correct.
Yeah, pretty much. So I've got my wife on the Xbox and trying to figure out, like, does this feel right? Does that feel like what a plane should do when you do this? But she doesn't know. She just yells at me. So.
Yeah, I mean, she's.
Is she like me and gets stuck either at the very top or very bottom?
Yes.
Like facing up or facing down, like staring at your feet in a first-person shooter, and
yeah, spinning around.
At my own ass in a first-person shooter before.
Spinning around and shooting the ceiling.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I fail on so many levels.
She's getting better.
So yeah, we've got a lot of code that we've written to try out different physics models. We've actually used a couple of older code bases from old flight simulators and things like that, some of the open source stuff, just to see how they did it and what they felt like. And we're still kind of up in the air on where we're going to end up with that, but it's coming together.
So you said, I'm gonna set you up for the next part here. You said that you guys had done your own 3D engine.
Yeah.
And earlier, before the show started, we were talking a little bit about Sunburn, and you guys had purchased licenses, but then chose not to use it. Like there were some issues in Sunburn that kept you from using it. Now, just so everybody knows on the podcast, they do sponsor the podcast. We put it on the site, and we are using it as developers for our kind of stuff. But we're new to Sunburn. Like we're figuring it out. And I'm interested to hear all the criticism, and it's unfiltered at this point. Like you don't have to be nice if you didn't like it at all. Just however it worked out, it worked out. It'll work for some people and it won't work for others too. So, I'm really curious to hear, because we don't have a whole lot. We haven't shipped a game with Sunburn basically, and until you've shipped a game with something or tried to, it's all academic.
Yeah, so a little bit more background here, actually. We did probably about 4 games that never even got out the door. We didn't even announce them. We didn't tell anybody about them. But we spent probably about a year and a half working on about 4 games. And one of them was actually called Avatar Paintball. And we'd been working on it for probably about 3 months. And we were using Sunburn, and it was right around that time that the Avatar Paintball on the Indie channel came out, and so we were just a little bit we were disappointed, because we're like, that was a good idea, and obviously they've done pretty well, so it was.
It was.
So what's that?
I said it was a good idea.
Yeah, no, it was a good idea. And we were just slow. We were just slow to develop. And part of that is that we had started using Sunburn. And we were just having so many problems. And I mean, this is a year and a half ago, I guess. And we were having so many problems. Now, disclaimer, we were using the Sunburn framework, not the entire engine.
Okay.
So, did they have that? I mean, I don't know when they had the 2 products. Because basically, Sunburn framework is like 1.0 version of the code, and like Sunburn 2.0 is the engine. I think that's the way I understand that.
I could maybe dig up what we had, but it's on my computer somewhere. I don't even know. But we were using the Sunburn framework, and we were just having so many problems. We were getting this really weird, artifacts. Like, you get shadows where there really shouldn't be any shadows. So we posted on the forums, and I mean, this is, like I said, a while back. We didn't get any solid responses. We got a few we'll look into that, but nothing more than that. And finally, we got to the point where we're just like, the other Avatar Paintball already came out. We're kind of, we don't want to be those people who are, Avatar Paintball tournament or something like that, where it's, it's
the image of a dream.
Yeah, exactly. And it's already been done on the channel. It's still there. It's doing well, and good for them.
What you're saying is, you don't want to be the castle miner to the fortress craft.
Yeah, so exactly.
It wouldn't necessarily be a bad
didn't-
thing in terms of...
We didn't want to be the castle miner to the fortress craft, so we said we're having all these problems with Sunburn, and then on top of that, and this is just a minor aesthetic thing that we kind of bitched about, and maybe we shouldn't have, but like the splash screen, you have to have that splash screen come up. It's really, really white, and the menus and everything in the game were really kind of dark, and that was the whole theme. So having this really white splash screen come up at the beginning kind of just threw everything. So we posted on the forums like, hey guys, is there any chance of getting like a little bit like another splash screen, like an option in there or something? And we were basically told no. So, and then, maybe it's a minor gripe, but it was something to us, another thing at that point where we're just like, you know what, forget it. We're going to move on to the next project, and we're not going to use Sunburn. So we had bought the licenses. We still have them. We still kind of play with it every once in a while because it is interesting and it is coming along really nicely. And we're not saying we won't use it in the future, but at this point, it's not really... another, like, we're programmers, and giving up that control to Sunburn was really, really hard for us at first, and we were starting to come around, and then it was at that point that we kind of just, everything fell apart, and we were put off and really discouraged. And
we have very similar, like, and me especially, like, I am very anti-framework. I am very we'll build any component that we need rather than grab a framework for one piece that we don't have. Let's
Right.
figure out how to do the one piece we don't have. And we had conversations around, are we trying to build a framework or are we trying to build a game? And maybe we need to suck up that programmer pride and just set that aside for a second and grab this. And then this is more a case of looking at Sunburn now, because I'd always been aware of Sunburn, but I've always kind of dismissed it of like, it's kind of lighting engine. And when I go in and I see like the latest version with scripting and collision detection and physics, and these are all new features, so they're probably going to have some issues and be incomplete in places. And definitely we're kind of on the rough edges of the 2D support, because that's kind of where we're trying to use it now, where you basically have a 2D game, but you use the Sunburn engine and get some of the 3D effects on your 2D game going for you. And I'm definitely at a point where I feel some rough edges there, because if you've done a 2D game, you like to say pixels, and you don't. You convert everything to UV coordinates, and it's kind of a little offsetting, I guess, because I'm used to, specifying everything in pixels with 2D, and UV coordinates is very 3D all of a sudden to work everything out, and, you just can't code in, this is 15 by 15. You've got to, like, go in, measure the sprite, and divide that one by whatever it is, and...
figure out where its Z position is, I guess.
I mean, it's getting to the point where we're also using the tiled engine, or the tiled map editor, and Nick Gravlin's tiled lib to import the tiled format. And I've forked his project on Bitbucket so I can add in some stuff that we need to make it work better. It does work. I have it working with Sunburn. But to make it work better, because for one thing, his plugin loads the textures, and so does Sunburn. So I'm loading the textures twice. So obviously we can't ship a game like that. We're going to eat up too much memory. It's doubling all our textures. But I'm also like trying to get in there and hack in, like, why don't you just calculate all the UV coordinates while you load that map, so all my code doesn't look like width divided by length of this, so I get it to UVs times, the height of this divided by that, and have to constantly convert pixels to 2D. We haven't gotten very far in it, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of ask you and figure out why it wasn't working for you, so, at least we have going forward, like, a red taped area of like, okay, this.
Don't touch this. 'Cause
Yeah.
we don't know. Well, I mean, that's the way it is with most frameworks or tools or things like that.
Well, the worst case is the GameMarx website, right? Because we
Okay.
went and grabbed for a rich text editor for
Yeah.
our comments section, which now we've replaced with Discuss, which is a much better choice we should have done from the beginning. But we were trying to put a little JavaScript rich text editor on the thing, and we were trying to get some up and running and all that, and it's kind of a mess, and you got to watch for cross-scripting attacks and all of that, and so we were trying various open source projects. None of them were working well, and we went to a very popular .NET component vendor, got licensed to use their products, and since we installed their assembly on our website, used their tools in a couple other places, their components in a couple other places, and watched the performance go down the toilet in development.
Well, I mean, it was basically using view state when we had turned it off.
We had turned
everywhere
off
else.
view state. We found ourselves having to activate view state. We find ourselves taking performance hits and it feeling sluggish. And it's like, I don't want to. Not that GameMarx would have launched with crazy views, but we were trying to build it like at least to scale a few steps without having to sweat anything. And then we found ourselves in the worst position, kind of like you guys, of like, we got to rip all this out. Like,
Yeah,
we got to
And
go
we
back
ended up
now.
going with Tiny MCE, which is pure JavaScript.
It is a pure JavaScript one, and we settled on Tiny MCE basically because I went to a bunch of sites that had rich text editors that I thought worked well, and I started viewing source and writing down
Like which
ones I could figure out that they were using, and that one became the most popular, and we said, all right, suck it, we'll go with
like
that.
I said, that's one of the problems with frameworks, and like early on, people will say, "Oh yeah, this is awesome," but until you actually get into it, you don't see, what its real, its strengths and its weaknesses, and there's always that one gotcha, no matter how
Diligent.
Yes,
And as a developer, right, like, you look at something, it's like, I could make that. What that's
Yes.
doing, I could do that. Like, I only need this part of it, and I can totally make that part of it.
And that's what we did, right? Like, we had Sunburn basically just doing the render for us. And we looked at some of the HLSL stuff, and we're like, that doesn't seem that hard. We can totally do that. And, man, were we wrong. we found out pretty quickly that we are not low-level HLSL guys. And they call it high-level shading language. It's not. It's low-level. Like, everything is, you got to do all these swizzling things, and it's brutal.
Oh, Colin? No. I will tell you, I went at GameMarx, I went into a GPU programming session, and they took the dude on the stage, he doesn't miss a beat, and he takes the, like, our shader performance is, he's using Pix on the Xbox, which we can't run, or no, what is it? It's not Pix, or...
I don't know.
Performance, yeah, that's what it is. I think it's Pix,
Yeah.
he's using that. He's using the Xbox version, the one we can't use. Like, we can use the PC Pix, but not the Xbox Pix. And he's like, obviously you can see our shader sucks here. And let's go over here and look at the assembly code generated by the shader. And aha, you can obviously see that this is an inoptimized call. And, like, I can't read anything of what's up there. And he sees it like the Matrix, And then, like, if we go into our HSSL and redo this and drop down to assembly language and do some inline assembly, and then bang, aha, it's all done. And, like, that was, like, in 30 seconds. And I was in the audience with Chad Carter, an XNA MVP, and I just looked over, and his eyes were as glazed over as mine was, and I felt good at that moment. Like, oh, okay, I'm not the only stupid one in the room. So, compared to what the assembly view is that they're doing, it's high level to that.
Yeah.
Compared to XNA, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and it's a matter of perspective, I guess. But so we struggled through. We ended up making our own renderer. It works pretty well. Like you said, we don't have access to Pix, so we can't really see how good it is. But it seems to be working all right. We're getting 60 frames a second on the Xbox, so.
Well, there you go. That's great. If you're getting that, then don't sweat.
Slow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't sweat the problems you don't have.
Well, and that's exactly, I'm the laziest coder you'll ever find. So,
that's one of the virtues.
if it looks right, it is right. I heard that in a talk somewhere. And that's exactly That's exactly the way that I approach everything, and exactly the way all of our HLSL stuff is. So I'm sure it's going to explode in our face at some point, but for now.
But until it does, it's fine.
So,
Well, I mean, at least when it does blow up in our face, we will have the ability to change it, which is something we didn't have with Sunburn. So we had this kind of factory level, and you're running under this scaffolding, and there's all these shadows there that just don't belong. And we couldn't figure out what was going on, whether there was hidden objects somewhere or just like what was happening. And so we fought with it. And at this point there was 4 of us. And the 4 of us fought with this for a couple weeks. And it was right around the time that Avatar Paintball came out, and we're just like, okay, you know what? Forget it. We're done. We're moving on to something else.
Yeah.
And that something else was GO.R.K. So.
Well, I mean, your code may have bugs, but at least they're your bugs. You know,
Exactly. They're my bugs. I'm proud of those bugs.
I know what they are. I can
made
find
those
them.
bugs.
well, if you play,
Exactly.
if you play Game Dev Story, like at the end of the round, like all the bugs become like research points later. Like you can level your guys up. Your developers can level up from the bugs because they fix the bug, and then you get like a research point to spend on them to train them up.
But it doesn't. But it
It doesn't make the game
slows-
ship
yeah,
faster.
slows-
Yeah, because you have to wait till the bugs are
Yeah.
fixed to ship the game. So, well, that's good to hear. We have to. We were talking a little bit before the show, me and Dylan, on one of our current projects. We need to figure out basically particle effects. I think we're not 100%. I want glowy lasers. I want glowy effects. I want the Geometry Wars type, crazy effects going on. I think we want particle effects. And
Well, no, if
like
you-
particle effects right now to me sounds like I need to get some uranium and a large hadron collider and spin that around a bunch of times, and that's how I get particle effects.
I may be missing something here, but what we were talking about, I think particle effects are separate from like the glowy effects. Like
Possibly.
you could use from what you explain particle effects are, you could use that to say, okay, at this point,
Yeah, because there's
do these
something
things
called point sprites, which sound like they tie in with the particle effects, as far as I'm understanding.
are point sprites in HLSL or are they in XNA?
I don't. I think that's
You don't even know where they are.
they
Where did you hear about them?
in a conversation in a thread
Oh,
where
okay.
particle effects were being talked about.
Okay.
Somebody mentioned something about point sprites.
I mean, when I was messing around, I did an HLSL.
I think my chat died unless they quit talking.
I don't know which, because I've been looking.
Okay.
Well, I know when I was messing around with like the Zelda clone thing, I did a shader that would basically take in a light value and would level, like increase or decrease the light for the whole screen based on that value. And I think what you'd have to do for that is you would have to pass in a set of coordinates that say, at this coordinate, and then you calculate distance from that coordinate, oval or, circle or whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, because I understand a little of the HLSL type stuff going on as far as like you get the vertex and you get the pixel shaders.
I understand
and
the
what they're-
concept
and what they
pixel
do,
shader.
because I did the 3D programming book and I basically had to weight the bones
Yeah.
and adjust the vertices. But I was basically doing something I could have done in C#, which was, apply a matrix transform to a point. And it's like, you just do it in the shader because that way you leverage the GPU instead of the CPU. And, you save your CPU because, baby, we needed all that power for the Inca Blocks API.
Yes.
Or the AI. routine.
AI.
Yeah.
But you were just like,
Uh,
our game was complicated.
Apparently, glow is a shader, and particles are different.
Okay.
all right, yeah.
Were we close?
According to Jim. Jim should really have a blog, according to Jim, like that.
There's a book or something like that.
There's a sitcom
Okay.
with Jim
Belushi.
Belushi, the Living Brother.
He can't even be he can't get his own credit. It's just
Like,
the Living Brother.
That's so funny.
yeah. So, Dylan, when Dylan went down to Dragon Con, you hit a couple game panels.
Yes.
And one of which was Game Design Mastery, which included Monty Cook, the president of Epic Games.
No. Mike Capps, the president of Epic Games. Monty Cook, the designer of D&D 3rd Edition. And here, it was basically across the board. They had...
that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's Gears of War 3. That's repping my final level Twitter gang, y'all. I'm
right.
The FLTG. We roll hard.
I thought you had quit them.
Yeah, I'm gonna quit the FLTG, the final level Twitter gang, and I'm gonna make the secret cow level Twitter gang, and we're gonna take down the final level Twitter gang.
How does one take down a Twitter gang?
I don't know, but the secret cow level Twitter gang will find out.
There's no turf on Twitter to be had.
No, you can tweet bomb. You can totally do tweet bomb.
What is a tweet bomb?
A tweet bomb is where everybody replies to one account at once.
Oh.
So basically, like, that person just gets a bazillion buzz messages, replies, mentions, and their account becomes useless for a little bit because they have so much activity.
Yeah.
And it's probably rate throttle at this point. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, the game design, they also had Richard Garfield, who was a designer of Magic the Gathering and one of the co-founders of Mayfair Games. So it was literally like board games, card games, role-playing games, video games, across the board.
So, I'm learning about shaders and particle effects from chat over here, which is the best way. You know,
the best way,
it's like the IRC chat. The best way to learn XNA programming is to go into IRC chat, because they will brutally make fun of you until you quit XNA, and you're probably better off for it. They probably saved you a lot of years of heartburn and suffering. And
wow.
So the first point you got on here is the easy to immerse yourself in the story mechanics. And I was
just typing this down as fast as possible. So a lot of there was a Q&A here, and I'm just parsing it out. Yeah, I mean that was kind of what they went into, and they talk later. I think I've got a note about this where sometimes the game idea comes from a story concept that they then pair with mechanics. Sometimes it's a set of mechanics that they then have to find a story, because even like the board games like Settlers of Catan or something, you could take the setting and the story away from it, the concept, but just be kind of a generic.
And it's interesting that was a point in the panel, and I think I said this to you already, like at lunch or something or somewhere.
Yeah.
But the book, A Theory of Fun for Game Designers, almost completely dismisses story. That's a red herring and stay away, and that's not a component of fun in games.
Well, now again, when you're talking about card games or board games, there's not as much story as you would find in, say, a role-playing game or a video game, like Gears of War.
But I mean, to come to a video game and to say I got this great story to put in the game, you're not adding any fun by adding the story. It's kind of the think of the book. It's your fun's not going to come from your story. It doesn't matter how good your story is.
They may have been talking on a different level, not necessarily the quality of the story itself, but just the flavor. How are you casting this game? Is it because you don't it can't just be a set of mechanical rules or mathematical rules. That was actually one of the things they got into later on is, if the model of your game is good enough, it'll be invisible. People won't draw that line between well, here's what the setting is, but here's,
Exactly. I mean, it won't be a position and this kind of, as I read the book, it kind of came clear for me. There have been games that I either don't enjoy because they suck ass, or I just don't enjoy that game.
Right.
That I force myself through because I'm kind of wanting to see what happens with the story. And it's at that point, I'm not having fun. So as a game designer, you've kind of failed. I'm not having fun with your game. I'm never going to replay your game. I'm just wanting to watch the cutscenes. And I'm half a click away from deciding, fuck it, let's go to YouTube and
I totally
watch these
agree.
videos.
Yeah,
I mean, the last few levels of the original StarCraft were these monster, like, 2-hour battles that you would have to get through the levels. And, like, I was so engrossed in the storyline of StarCraft that I fired up the cheats and, God mode and, like, let's go. I just want to, like, roll this whole map and see what happens next.
Yeah.
And, like, as a game designer, that kind of sucks a little bit because it's like your epic battle, I can give a fuck about. Like, I just, turn that off. I just want to see the cutscene.
Well, it's kind of like when you were playing the Catherine demo over here.
Exactly.
I looked at it and, like, I kind of want to see where this is going. It features, like, every character in this game is horrible, horrible people, and I hate them all. But I want to see where this is going, but I don't want to play a puzzle
You know what
game.
else has been that way?
What?
I'm not saying they're a gold digger, but...
Oh.
Wait, what?
A couple silver dollar games.
Oh, like Office Affairs.
Office Affairs
yeah.
and Emily. Fatal Attraction.
Fatal
Seduction. Yeah.
Yes.
Those were like, we kind of like the story here, but
yeah,
not the game.
I think that, I mean, the gist I got from the panel was that, no one was saying, oh yeah, you approach it from one angle or another. It's Fatal Seduction is a case where it had a decent gameplay, not great, but the story carried it for you.
It did. And there's something to be said of like, I wasn't going for the gameplay. Like that's valid. That's valid to say like, no, it was about the story. Like this was about the story. This was a interactive story, not a video game. And I would say, like, oh, yeah, that's... Congratulations, you hit that. If you came at it and you said, like, no, we're trying to make a video game, like StarCraft, the last level, we're trying to make a video game, and I blow past it for your story, I would stop playing your game if you didn't have a cutscene I was interested in. So your game is not good. And that was kind of the point of the book of, like, the story is the red herring. Like, people may finish your game for it, they may be into your game for this narrative. They could totally get that narrative elsewhere, and it would be no different and probably better for them.
And actually, I think they're right in the sense that story will not carry a weak game.
Yeah, that's definite. So, yeah, you mentioned some iterativeness, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier on these points. I'm just kind of scanned through...
Yeah. Iterativeness, not necessarily like, you take an idea and build on it. Like the guy from Epic was saying, a cool gun is not just the mechanics of how the gun functions in game, but the sound and the visuals and everything together. So you kind of have to, and they'll take an idea and keep tweaking it until they get what they want.
One thing that you mentioned with the sound of the gun, a tip from like the video producers and such and editors that I work with, a tip for like learning what sound should be where, like what did this sound like, what should this on screen, what should the music be? How should the camera behave? If you're doing a cutscene or something like that, is to go watch some movies that, or even shows or whatever that have like the similar setting of what you're going for, or just in general, and mute the television and watch it without sound, because then you will notice a whole lot more about what they did in that shot, and then you will notice when the sounds come back, like, what was brought where. You become more aware of that. I mean, this kicked up for me a lot too when I started doing the sound effects with the Foley artists and watching how Foley artists actually do the sounds. The Foley artist is a guy who it's started by a guy named Foley, and basically he just like made sounds while the film played, and they recorded that. So like you see like the radio shows where the guy makes like the horse walking sound and all that. Like that's literally what these guys did, and they just studied like and just had collections of like, I've got some cut glass that I'll scrape on sandpaper and that kind of sounds like this, like the boulder in Indiana Jones, rolling down. That is a station wagon in neutral rolling down a hill on a gravel road, and that microphone is placed like right next to that tire. So what's going on?
The last comment.
But listen to P90X without the video.
Wait, what?
It's all dirty. What? Oh, that's the exercise.
The exercise.
No, listen to it with dubstep.
Everything with dubstep.
Everything's better.
I guess.
I don't know. let's see. Yeah, taking out components that don't work. I mean, a lot of this was... I'm going to kind of skip over some of the obvious, I think, that was said.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on is they talked about fresh eye testing, and this is not something independent game developers could do, but it's cool that this actually happens.
No, I saw somebody recommend this, actually, of, like, if you don't mind, go to Craigslist and, like, invite some people over through Craigslist, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you know, like, a good friend who's 7 foot tall and 250 pounds... to be your bouncer because they're freaks from Craigslist. But to go out to Craigslist, it's like, hey, I need some people to do some video game testing, come in for a few hours, set up a camera so you record the whole event so you can go watch it back later and pick up more that you don't pick up immediately, and let them play your game. Just come over and play your game.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because they did talk about how, like, you know, if you're having your friends play test it, you're never going to get truly, you know, objective feedback. Or
I suggested in the chat, do it in a hotel. Because that doesn't sound like something weird for the guy on Craigslist.
It doesn't sound like,
hey, let's come to this hotel and play video games. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
But isn't that exactly what the play testing on the indie channel's for? Like they've got that on the indie games, right? And
yeah.
The problem with the indie channel test is that only developers can get at it. So even if you get an audience, you're getting other developers, which is not representative of gamers.
And one thing they said, as far as like big companies doing this, like your testers, the people who are there professionally testing stuff, you know, you've got like your alpha testers, which are going to be the first line.
They're definitely going to be a lot better than the average gamer.
Yeah, they're not going to be. But one of the things like Epic said that they could do is, you know, they can go to Microsoft and say, we need this many people from this age group who have never played this game but have played this game or something. Like they can specify very specific demographics, and I just think it's interesting that that's a thing. I mean, it makes sense that
the Craigslist thing.
Well, no, not that it would be a Craigslist thing. Like obviously, Microsoft and Epic are in better position to do this in places more reputable than Craigslist. You know, I'm sure they have databases.
But that is a good thing. And you know what we kind of experienced with Inkablocks is to be able to accept the playtest and not make excuses for it.
Yeah,
because we made a lot of excuses on Inkablocks playtesting when just family and, you know, my daughters played it. Basically, when everybody hated to play it and would only play it for like 10, 15 minutes and then go like, all right, is that enough? Do you got, you know, what you need?
Yeah.
Like, oh, can you play a few more, you know, minutes, or check this out, or, you know, hey, check this out. Like, should have realized, like, they're not liking it at all, you know, and they're only doing that because, you know, it's like I'm asking them.
One thing they had said is related to that. It is interesting. There are sometimes when you want to ignore the results of playtesting. There are legitimate times. For example, they were talking about Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition changed the way initiative works. In 2nd Edition, you roll initiative every round. 3rd Edition, you roll initiative once at the beginning of combat.
Mm-hmm.
And their initial feedback was, you know, we don't like this. This is, you know, it feels wrong, whatever. And they kept saying, you know, just keep giving it a chance. And eventually, the testers came around. So I think...
Yeah, because, I mean,
it's time spent.
The initiative, like, that speeds up so much of 3rd and 4th edition rule sets of that. You know, it's not a lot of time spent messing with that. Who goes first? Because you have to roll initiatives on the mobs, too.
Right.
It's like the DM is, like, rolling initiative, like, 17 times, you know, to figure things out. And so this kind of sets everything up.
It gets confusing because you have to reorder it.
And, it takes out some of the chance that was in D&D. I mean, I know D&D is a dice roll game. But, like, it was overly chance-based. Like, you could just, like, win initiative rolls, like, a couple times in a row and just, like, mow through what should have been a rough encounter. But because the initiative rolls went like crap.
Well, and I don't know if this came up in the playtesting, but what the single initiative does is it then allows you to have effects where you say, okay, I come first in the initiative order. I'm going to declare that I can't remember what it's called, but there's basically you can say when this person does this,
then
right.
I'm holding action is what it is.
Withholding action, right.
And your initiative changes. Like there is a penalty for doing that. Your initiative changes. Whereas,
but you can basically have it's an option to say like, hey, I'm at the front of the line. I'm not. I'm gonna take a withholding action, and I'm gonna move myself.
Survey
back
the
in
battlefield. Make sure, like, if you're defending something, and
which is a good team dynamic, which is what D&D is.
Yeah,
right.
We've worked it into our storyline. Like they haven't proved aggressive enough, so my paladin will not charge until somebody makes an aggressive move.
Yeah, there's a very legitimate reason not to attack, but to be on the defensive. But it kind of makes sense. Like you would not have a penalty for doing that. There would be no cost for doing that if you didn't have initiative, a single initiative.
So they make you made a note here too of placeholders.
Yeah.
Basically, Marcus Phoenix is 8 man weeks to model him, and even like board games used like just cut up other pieces and
like HeroClix. They
play
developed,
the
they
game.
had a
I think the real
spreadsheet.
thing behind that is it's not important to have the graphics in place. It is to have a playable prototype so that you can iterate on the playable prototype and then add in your graphics later than it is to like spend all these time creating all these great graphics and then start trying to prototype the game.
Yeah, and it was funny because he was talking about like, in Gears of War, for a while there you'd run around and you'd use the chainsaw, and the chainsaw was just another person, another person model because that's what they had. So,
wow,
yeah,
that kind of be awesome. I wish I could like tilt a console and unlock like man meat chainsaw.
I don't know if that's just an example or if that really happened, but yeah, I mean it's that sort of thing, and I've done that. I've found that when I've been playing around with XNA, if I use placeholders, I get a lot more done because I'm not like worrying about
I
the
love
look of
your
it.
note here. A lot of my inspiration comes from the fact I am hypocritical and arrogant.
That was Monty
fucking
Cook.
set.
That was Monty Cook.
Set.
But what he was saying was basically you come and look at another game and say, well, okay, that's great, but I could do this, 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 and this to make it better. So you do,
Follow up on it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else in that panel?
I'm scanning over it.
No,
a lot of it.
Spinals, man meat chainsaw.
Oh, you want the man meat chainsaw. You just don't want to admit it in public. That's okay.
We love you, Stegs.
Which, by the way, there's a video of Ice-T unboxing his Gears of War 3 online, and it's funny to watch him. First of all, like, it's very humanizing to somebody like Ice-T to watch him frustrate with like trying to open a box.
He's
and,
famous. He should have someone that does this.
He should have people that does this or open it in some massively cool rap star way. And he's just trying to shake the damn styrofoam out of the box and turns it upside down and throws it on the floor. And then like, oh, the fucker's taped. Like, I don't have a knife on me. And he goes to the kitchen and comes back with a kitchen steak knife to open it. Like, you would expect Ice-T should whip out some kind of gangster style, switchblade, and like, no, he's going to the kitchen, getting a knife, like, but it's cool because you're watching like Ice-T trip out over an Xbox console like we would. Like, you would get the Gears of War limited edition console and be like, holy shit, look how awesome this is red. I don't know that I would smell new games.
They have a smell, though.
They do have a smell.
But I wouldn't, sniff them.
I don't know. Maybe we should start sniffing the new indie games. Maybe that's,
They smell like TV screen.
They smell like TV screen.
That's
smell like defeat.
That's what downloading takes away from us. One thing they did mention that I did want to bring up is they were talking about how basically kind of the culture of gaming is shifting. And this doesn't apply to Xbox Live Indie games so much, but, back in the day, it was, people did a lot of LAN parties and that sort of thing. You don't see that as much anymore. Instead, what you see is these asynchronous multiplayer games like Words with Friends or something like that. And it's made more people gamers. More people identify as gamers.
So there, in the book, the A Theory of Fun, he outlines that there are 7 types of intelligence. not just like the IQ test type intelligence. Like that's one
Right.
metric. Like musical is another one. Even though music is very math based at its core, there's been tons of people who know nothing of the underpinning mathematical reasons of why music, is the way it is, but they just intuitively understand it. So they have a high intelligence. There's an intelligence factor which basically equates to like sports. There's one for like social and all that, like your politician, like, just naturally understands communication among people and, do all that. There's like 7 of these. Spatial identification is one of them, and which the spatial stuff, like Tetris, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically like the ability to like take a geometry object mentally and rotate it and see if it'll fit with this other rotated piece and all that. Boys do that very well. Boys develop that ability very early and very well, whereas girls develop linguistic skills and verbal skills and that intelligence factor much, much sooner.
Yeah.
And now he said what is interesting is that they have taken a group of girls who tested very low on spatial reasoning skills. Okay, so they were known to be low in that area as compared with the average and as compared to the boys. And they forced them to like play Tetris for like a month, right? So they just had set times or something. And not only did the girls get good at Tetris, like they got genuinely, like they really became really good players of Tetris, they showed a permanent increase in their spatial skills. It was kind of like, achievement unlocked. It was like they unlocked
you're exercising
spatial
something that is
ability
atrophied, basically.
And it the point in the book at this point is that, it's nature and nurture. It
Right.
does both. And to bring it around to games and the words with friends and all that, is like, it's not to say that you can't make a game that is a spatial shaped game that won't appeal to women. Okay?
Right.
Because one of the things we do is we tend to play things that we are good at, right? So if you're not good at spatial games, if you're not good at first-person shooters, you don't play first-person shooters, right? But that's not to say you can't make a first-person shooter. Cicely over there won't play. If you're on the audio version, she raised her hand and admitted to that. I'm not stereotyping any sexual, nothing.
Yeah, I
sexism.
suck at first-person shooters.
So, but it's not to say you can't make one that she won't play. You have to take her from a place that she does like, and in increments slowly iterate through the game and introduce the first-person gameplay mechanics to her, and then all of a sudden, like, she will be able to play your game. But not only will she be able to play your first-person shooter, that pattern is unlocked. We're neural networks, so if you understand how neural network works as far as it's all related to something else, that neural network can now make that association with other first-person shooters, and she's better at all of them.
FPS for dummies.
And he actually says in the thing, it's one unfortunate thing about games that they don't do more of this kind of teaching of, like, we're going to take the words with friends people to the Gears of War with this game. Like, that's how we're going to figure that out, to, like, start with, like, things like that and work over. But there's also things you can't do immediately. Like, did I say on the podcast already about the Tetris and the Bejeweled thing? We were talking about that earlier.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so...
I don't remember this, actually.
You can't... Like, in the puzzle game arena, you had Tetris. Yeah. Massive success. And the next real, like, crazy massive success was Bejeweled, right? As far as just, like, game-busting, like, people who didn't play games played this, right?
Right.
And you could not have released Bejeweled right behind Tetris and had its success. Because people would have gone to it like, what is this? This is weird and different. And I don't get it, and you're frustrating, and it would just die. You had to have a Dr. Mario in between as kind of like a
stepping stone,
yeah. Of like, it's a little bit of both going on here to evolve the genre. So while, we're talking about like the Words with Friends to Gears of War, that may not be a single game step. That may have to be a progressive, like, the genre moved this direction and brought more people in.
Not necessarily that the genre is going to, like, that you're going to move all of those people over, but that you can kind of get them out into a larger,
Stakes
broader...
makes a good point. Portal 2.
Portal 2, I guess.
Portal 2 is the puzzle game in first-person format, and Cicely likes the puzzle games, like there's an achievement for that, and played Portal.
Yeah.
You know, even though it was a first-person shooter and she spent a lot of time looking at her ass, but it's a female ass, so I was fine with that.
It's a third person. Okay. They actually did mention something about
No,
this.
it's first person, isn't it?
It is first person.
Yeah.
I don't know how I looked at my ass.
You get a mirror, though. You get a mirror reflections.
There was a question about one of the designers on the panel had designed a board game called Robo Rally, and the issue was, you know, for something like that takes a lot of spatial reasoning, how do you make that accessible to people who don't have that? And it's like, well, you can't really take that out. You should take out anything that irritates people. You know, even if some people like it, you should seriously think about taking that out. But the only other thing you can do is provide tools to make it simpler for them to grasp that. Yeah. And also, not everyone is going to figure out the same things.
You got any thoughts on this, Colin? I know we've kind of talked quite a bit.
Not really. I'm not a huge gamer, to be honest with you. You guys are kind of talking past me here, so.
I mean, this is There was one
wasted youth. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't. To be honest, I've never even played another indie game, and I know that makes me a horrible community member, and shame on me for that.
I think the best thing that we've gotten from indie games has not been this is what works. Yeah. It's been the failure. It really has been like the list of things not to do has become much more clear.
Yeah, like you can, if you're just developing a game, you think, well, this is a rough edge, but people won't notice it, and then you play like 10
a bunch of people
games a
that
week,
did that.
and you're like, yeah, you can tell a difference. There is a difference.
I mean, the one thing I do want to say though is like I did take G.O.R.K to work, and I set up the conference room with other people and like made them play it, and they hated me for it. But I mean, it was pretty rough at that point as well. So
I mean, that's a hard thing to sit there and be quiet while somebody is like not getting it. And you're like, don't you just? How can you not fucking see the arrow? How do you not see the arrow? It's flashing. You know,
I mean, it's so obvious to you as a developer, right? But then, you know, this person who just picks up the controller and they're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And it's just like, come on, just go towards the arrow.
Do it.
How can that be?
And you know what? We find ourselves on the indie games, and I think more than probably you do. You're a little bit still more disciplined about it, but I blow past, like, if you've got, like, 3 screens I have to read to learn how to play your game, or you throw up here's every controller option, and there's like 7 lines coming off the controller.
I don't always do it, but yeah.
I just ignore that. Yeah, I was like, I'll push these buttons when the game starts and see what they do. But I'm not reading this crap. And it was funny to watch Ice-T like fire up Gears of War and basically like blow past like all the settings. Like, fuck, I just want a new game. I just want to play. I want to play, and I'm not going to read any of this crap. You know,
and Mike was immediately like, validation.
Yes.
And that's where good tutorials help. You know, introducing things slowly.
And that's one of the things we got from the, what did you call it? New eye testing?
Testing was what they called it. I'm sure.
Yeah, like, nobody wants to read any of this crap. So don't bother even, like, make it available to them.
Small.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better to think, and not even in terms of, like, the tutorial level, which is kind of an extent. Sometimes that gets frustrating. It's more of, like, your starting level, the iterations should be the controls.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, hey, run, look, you got to jump, press A to get over this. Oh, look, here comes a creature, X to attack.
And some of them have been really painfully slow. Yeah. Especially like, I don't know, I think, I can't remember how to pronounce it, Hako Toma or whatever it was.
I mean, like
some of them will explain to you
how
to move forward.
Don't pop up the wall of text and freeze the game every time there's a new mechanic. Like, just make the A button glow over my head when I get near the jump.
Right.
I will figure it out. Like, you want me to press A and I will do it. You know, one of the best games that ever did this was Shrek for the original Xbox. It wasn't the party game. It was just Shrek, or maybe it was a sequel. And the reason I know that this game that did this discovery thing so well is that my daughter, when she was 6, could play this game. This action RPG game is basically what it was. But she could get quite far in this game before it actually got to a point of beyond the difficulty level for a 6-year-old. All with, not being able to read everything that was on the screen, but just the hints in the UI were enough for her to get going. So that's something we learned a lot from playing the indie games.
What's interesting, that was one other thing, and this is the last thing I'll mention off the list. One of the designers said, what's helpful is actually learning games that you don't like. Like, he said he didn't like football. He learned it to figure out why other people liked it.
I love football.
Yeah, and to figure out, get to the point where you can recognize the good and bad pieces of a game, and that way,
Right. Yeah.
Just, this sucks.
So, all right, I think we're gonna button that conversation, and we're gonna get into the new releases for the week. The week runs Friday the 2nd through Thursday the 8th is our new week, and our first game up this week is Moe Makuri 2, the sequel.
If you didn't hear his sigh, here's sigh.
Now, as much as you guys sigh, so the sighing is for the underage girls in skimpy outfits and almost down to straight up naked.
Yeah.
But the puzzle game is a good puzzle game. This is just like the first Moe Makuri. Like, the puzzle game is a good puzzle game.
Well, no, what's surprising about this is they've actually come up... It's similar, but it's not the same mechanic. And so it's not just like, here's a bunch more levels. We've commissioned an artist to draw, 8 more scantily clad women. There you go. They actually put some effort into it.
Yes. And it's good because it could have totally, like the success of the first one,
just like
coasted that and entered more puzzles.
And
I don't even know if that would have been bad. Like, I don't know if I would have not bought it or not. I did buy 2.
You have a problem.
Right out the gate.
You do have a problem.
But I basically wanted to see if, the jiggling was still there. Like, if you could make the boobs jiggle like you could in the first one. Which you have to beat the entire game to do. And I did in a week. And I know, the first one, where I just got nonstop emails and comments and questions like, how do you beat stage 3, whatever? And I'm like, you know what, fuck it up. You gotta suck it up and do it, man. These girls are just going to get naked because you want them to. You got to work at it. You got to put in the hours and the effort.
Father of 3 girls right here.
Yes. Hey, we did do a video of that, so you're going to get to see it. If you want that. Now, you got to get past...
Maybe you don't want to hate
the cute anime girls.
Even more.
So, and again, my thoughts, I've said this on several podcasts before. My thoughts is that the Xbox Live sexual, the rule that basically states the sex can't be the point of the game or something, is grossly misinterpreted.
Yes.
It's a sub bullet under partial nudity. So first of all, it kind of has to be applied in a context that's not often applied.
These pictures seemed less. No.
And the thing is that it's most often applied to the gamer can't be getting sexual gratification from the game, which is not how I read it at all. I read that the point in the game can't be sex. So basically, It's a sex simulator. This is banning some of the avatar massages that were getting naked and stuff like that. It's where there's actual BioWare sex in the game. That's not going to happen in indie games. You can't have Leisure Suit Larry essentially. Where the point of Leisure Suit Larry is to find sex. And you can't have that. But I don't think it's fair to take that rule and say this gamer, it's looking at a pretty girl and therefore he is turned on, because that's such a slippery slope. I don't want to know what you freaks buying the indie games are getting turned on by.
It's a slippery slope, but in this case, I don't think you can, you just have to be in denial to say that that's not part of the point, especially this one.
Well, it's where do you draw the line? Because
it's less...
Alpha Squad gave you girls to put in your trophy room, which was a bedroom, and they were having a pillow fight. And as you did certain things in the game, you unlocked those as your trophies. And it's okay, so there's a whole other game around it.
They're your trophy whores.
But yeah, it's like, so if like, are you gonna fail Alpha Squad on that?
I'm not
because,
saying it's
like, at a point. Otherwise, you're arguing the semantics of, is there enough of a puzzle game to justify the pictures?
Yeah, I guess I'm not saying that it necessarily shouldn't be failed, but I don't think it's a black and white issue, and there is room for debate on it.
The other point is that indie games are under the highest rating restriction on the console.
Right.
So, like, if there is any amount of parental control enabled, there's no indie games. Now,
right.
That's kind of unfortunate in many other situations, but, on this respect, like, you kind of got to go with it, and, like, fucking Catherine is out now, so, like, I mean...
Eat it.
If that's the gold standard for the retail games, if that's what the mature title is now,
horrible people.
we're not there. We're not there as far as like having
there.
a game about having affairs.
Yes. But
Also, a puzzle game.
also a puzzle game.
Our next one up.
The only good.
Why do I have Jellyfish MD listed?
I don't know. It's not this week. It was last week.
It was last week. That's kind of weird. Maybe
Did
our
you
database or...
We talked about it.
We did talk about it, and I thought it really... You know what? We didn't check the actual date, and it may have been...
It was close enough that we decided it was there.
We did. We talked about it last week. Anyway, our next one up is Silver Dollar. Headshot God. So this is another in the ever-continuing Headshot series.
But it's not actually a headshot game.
Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, it's not what...
If it's an iteration.
It's a different mechanic. Yes.
It's an iteration upon the Headshot format. I actually kind of thought the iteration was kind of novel.
Yeah.
In that
not.
you have a delay.
Well, not that novel, but
you have a delay
novel-ish.
when you shoot, basically for the lightning to strike. So you're killing these people with lightning. And then you have a range of where that lightning is going to affect. And the delay increases and the range shrinks. No, it was not enough to make me want to play much more of the game other than we did
and
for
it
the
actually
trial.
got frustrating pretty quickly.
And it did, but I thought it was interesting evolution to... And there's been more than just Silver Dollar Games release these Headshot games. There's been more of these sniper
but they've
type games
released
on there.
at least 2 of them.
Yes. Our next one up is Blocked. B-L-O-C-K-T. This is a 3D puzzle game, and this one didn't do it for me. Like, the 3D puzzle games are tricky because they can easily become frustrating.
I could not get the view to be what I wanted to be, and then it was hard. They didn't exactly explain, you have to have only one piece touch at this one spot right here, although it was kind of implied by the fact that there was only one spot there, but it didn't control like I thought it should. It was hard to get the camera to move where I wanted to. I started
That was the frustrating thing. Like, it should have had free camera control on the right stick.
I'm actually happy it had the choice between isometric and standard, because isometric gets frustrating with controls. It doesn't
exactly. Like, it was hard to kind
of
figure out which way you were moving because the controls were kind of relative.
I did the D-pad for a while, and that was better for me, but
yeah.
I was still frustrated with it because the D-pad on the Xbox controller is not the best.
No.
So, I mean, the puzzle play is basically go around, like, you move one block and it connects to the others, and then you try to get all these blocks into a certain configuration based on the map. And you can fall off the edges, but, like, there could be multiple platforms, so you'd have to build, like, a bridge to get your guy to roll across the bridge. So that's basically the approach. I mean, there was an idea there. It was not solid in the execution.
The blocks didn't feel like they moved naturally, is what I want to say. Not that, I guess there is a natural movement.
Well,
for
this
blocks,
goes back to that Theory of Fun book that I'm going to constantly throw out a citing of.
Yeah.
It was not a recognizable pattern.
Right.
And thus it becomes frustrating. Like, it needed to fit into, like, a recognizable pattern for us to grok it.
Some of the challenges were hard simply because, if you had a 2-block construct, you couldn't move forward one block. You had to roll around until you were positioned to move
Yeah, you
forward
kind of
two
had to do
blocks.
this like little weird pattern dance to move forward one
Yeah.
square, and that got old quick.
Yeah.
Our next one up is Ninja, Ninjah, and this is
A germ of an idea.
kind of a
Yes.
puzzle platformer, a little
Definitely, yeah.
bit.
puzzle
You basically have a little guy, and
You're a
Yeah.
ninja.
you can jump over some things to get to the exit. You've got a little rope you can throw out to swing to get to the exit. Where it starts to get tricky is you can it's the floor becomes hot lava, basically.
Yes, that is exactly. I wouldn't have thought of.
It is
phrasing that way.
the floor is hot lava game. So you land on one color and then you land on a
Or
cube.
you even touch that.
You land on a
color.
checkered block, and that determines the color of platforms you can land on. And all the other block colors are hot lava at this point that you can't step on. And then so you will probably have to like swing over here, change the color so you can swing back the other way, and then get out.
Okay.
It was slowly going up, but like the last level that I played, like the difficulty just went off the freaking cliff for me.
Yes,
I don't know if it was the one you played. It had like 4 bars of different colors to the top, and had a little green box in the center that you swung from.
I think that was the first non-tutorial level.
Oh, was it
too.
the first non-tutorial?
Yeah.
Like that thing, like I was like, this might. I got to that, and it was like, fuck no.
I think if the blocks like prevented you from landing, like threw you off, or if it just blocked your progress instead of killing you, it would have been a little more fun. It is a really neat idea, and they got really creative. There's a lot of different mechanics at work.
So our next one up is Red the Lost Temple. We did video on this. So this is a lighting mechanic exploration game.
Sort of. It almost kind of wants to evoke the Legend of Zelda, Star Tropics, Indiana Jones sort of feel, I think. I may be reading something into that I want to see.
No, I mean, because
don't
it's
know.
got like the find the pieces to unlock the door and get the key
Yeah.
type dungeon-esque. Like the Legend of Zelda as far as like the subterranean dungeons
Yeah.
in that play is what it is. The voice acting was pretty well.
Yes.
And on the video, we kind of comment, and I got some chuckles out of how they break the fourth wall. And like in the middle of conversation, they will say things like, and my torch is running low, I need to go find another torch, or like I have dynamite and I need to make sure I run away from the dynamite because it explodes, and can hurt me or something.
Yeah.
Or like when they just walk over and like, oh, you know that when you walk over these crystals, they save your current location.
He's
What?
like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It
So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek the way they work the tutorial bits in.
we've played a lot of games that have tried the lighting mechanic and have not really used it effectively. This actually does, because it does give you kind of hints and stuff like that. Although, be prepared the first time you play it, you will fall off edges and things like that, because it's not always easy to see what
Anything.
certain tiles are supposed to be, like what the floor is supposed to be. There's a section where you're running from a boulder, and there are these streaks on the ground, which are obviously like oil slicks or mud slicks, or
They're obviously
Something.
oil slicks when
I don't
you
know,
run
they-
through
they,
them.
They look like,
but they look like holes.
They
they look like
mini
holes, and it looks like he jumps over them. To me, it looked
Oh.
like he jumped over the holes.
No, they're oil
But
slicks.
I guess they could have been oil slicks.
Because
I don't know.
when he
seems to move
falls, he
faster.
falls definitely, and it's a,
But no, because they were holes too small for you to fall in. It looks like he could jump those, and it looks
Oh.
like he does these crazy long jumps. But that doesn't make sense because it's like he's jumping like 8 or 9 tiles now, and it's like no, he can't jump 8 or 9
Yeah.
tiles. So I guess they're oil slicks, but
Well, I guess
like,
that's
It's
when you
'cause
guys said
they-
oil slicks, I had no idea what you were talking about. I thought they were little holes that he was jumping over.
no,
I
because
did
he
too,
runs
at
into
first.
the boulder in front of him if you go for too far.
I think that's. I mean, this just proves the point. There is kind of a learning curve there because it's so
Yeah.
dark. But pretty cool.
We did do video on that one, so look for that next week. Elemental Wizard is our next one, and this is
I didn't change a single spell, and still was killing people.
It didn't seem. Yeah, this is a dual stick shooter. It lets you change spells, so you kind of look like what it looks like to have. Like you got a fire spell and you got an ice spell and what else? But it didn't look like I didn't notice any creatures taking more
Yeah.
damage because I had an ice spell.
There was a help screen that showed you which creatures
This
were
one's weak
weak.
to this one, and that one's weak to that one. I did not care.
Yeah, I
it
looked
didn't-
at it
Did
and I'm
not
like,
it didn't
care.
matter.
wow, I'm not going to remember all this. I'm just going to play.
And there is a little like store you can jump into any time. So, which was kind of neat because it was always there. Like, you didn't have to finish a level to go to the store. You could just jump in and level up based on the points you had and start over.
I
But
did not notice the leveling up system.
it's just a basic 2D
Dual stick shooter.
shooter. Monkey Madness. This is
Hated
like
it.
Frogger, only
Bad.
worse.
Only side scroller, basically. You're not even
No, it wasn't side scrolling. It was going up. I was going up.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it was from the side angle Frogger instead of top down.
Well, it could have
Because
been
you had to jump.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you were jumping instead of walking across the road, but yeah.
It was really rough, really hard to control. There were power-ups that prevented you from dying from falling or prevented you from falling down holes.
Well, and you
that-
couldn't, like, jump a gap. Like, so
Yeah.
if you jumped up a level and, like, you couldn't jump up to the next, what equivalent would have been a log in Frogger, you couldn't easily, like, get over the gap, although you could jump, but I guess...
You can't mind the gap. You can float over the gap, but you can't jump over it.
Yeah, it was strange. I don't know.
Our next one up is Primary Potions, and this is a little puzzle game of color mixing, essentially. So you mix the colors to make a new color, and it's got that Diner Dash style, like, here's the recipe, go make it. That was Diner Dash, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But
Or
it didn't
thousands
have...
of
I almost said
Pounds.
Burger Time, but I was like, I don't think Burger Time's right.
Burger Time was
Burger Time was just get it off the
predecessor.
conveyor belt and, like, get it over to the...
But you had to go in the right order to get certain power-ups.
But it was always the right order, right? Like, it was always the same, like, bun, meat.
Well,
It's been a long time since I played Burger Time.
it
but
didn't always come in the right order. Sometimes you had to let go a piece just to...
Sometimes a burger goes on the floor. You know? That happens at McDonald's, that happens in Burger Time. So, the thing with Primary Potions we were playing is that, the color mixing seems off. Like, you would mix what looked like on screen, like, dark red with dark blue, and get light purple. And
Yeah.
it's like, that wasn't intuitive. Like, when they want, like, light purple, it's like, well, I'll mix yellow with the blue, maybe that'll lighten it up a bit, and then I'll mix it, but that wasn't working. And then
the end of the tutorial was like, you have to mix black, and it's all these. I was like, okay, so I was trying to mix this tertiary color with that tertiary color, and it's like, no, you can't mix those two. Until I finally realized, oh, you can actually mix more than two together. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
yeah, that was the other thing. I wanted to have, like, middle steps. Like, I'll make the middle color, I'll make the tertiary color, and then I'll mix it with the next bottle. But you had to select all of them at once and do it, and
I was like, nothing else can I select more than one of these.
yeah. It does provide, however, a little quick access menu screen for the chart. Because that's actually how I started mixing them. I would just go pop out to the chart and say, like, oh, okay, this looks like pink to me, but yeah, I'm going to mix blue and red or something, or and get
or
pink.
purple and red or something.
Yeah, something like that. I'm going to mix purple and red and get pink. I'm like, oh.
It's lighter than both of them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, tertiary colors I'm never going to remember, so... I don't know, it was kind of an interesting game, but...
Play As You Go was our next game, and game is kind of,
It's really three different games. There's a Breakout clone, there's a top-down space shooter, and then... I can't remember what the last one was. Oh... There was H1N1, then there was Space.
You couldn't play H1N1, though. That was like...
No, you could.
No,
You could?
You could.
Oh, okay.
It just... Their selection, you were selecting the one that was white, not the one that was yellow.
Yes. That menu did have that problem of
Okay.
using the yellow, the pattern of the highlight color, and like you're like going for the one not yellow, and it took me a while to realize I was selecting the wrong menu option, and on that. Yeah, it was just bad all over.
It was
I
like-
mean,
It was three kind of classic style games, but none of them were particularly well done, I guess. I hate to say that, but it's kind of what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Stags pointed out in the chat, like Diner Dash was all right. Diner Dash is when I went at Burger Time. Diner Dash, you just delivered. You didn't have the construction part. King's Cup. Yeah. Whatever. This is just a stupid.
It's a drinking game.
You have to actually be drinking in the real life for this game to be working, and I'm like, I don't really want to boot up my Xbox if I'm going to be drinking.
Exactly. We want to drink. We'll start the podcast. Apex.
I've seen it.
We did video on Apex, so this is kind of a doodle jump take, but more platformer than just the jumping from piece to piece.
You have to deal with you're basically trying to escape rising lava, and the lava actually in some cases does has effects, like it will trigger
shit off TNT.
Yeah. And it's got a lot of... The mechanics felt to me a little bit like Mega Man. Like there were some of the same concepts, like the blocks that appear and disappear and things like that.
Didn't have the same sounds, but yeah.
No. It was fun. It was a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, we got much further in the video.
Yes.
But that was it. Looks like the database may have not updated. The next one is Hakatoma.
Okay, yeah.
And this was another 3D puzzle game that was... Maybe there was an idea here, but not a good execution.
I don't
there's no
being
challenge
told,
to it.
Hey, walk forward. Yay, you walked forward. Hey, go over the side. Yay, you walked over the side.
The bitch was a little frustrating in the tutorial, basically.
The tutorial was a bit slow, and I didn't really see where it was going. I didn't catch, like, there didn't seem to be like a way to lose or a way to screw it up. It just, hey, push this ball over here to this target.
Eventually, she got to be where, I get a bad feeling if you don't do this quickly enough. And I wasn't sure if it was enough moves or enough time. But I think it was enough moves, and something would have happened.
Really? Because I spent forever on that one. And
did you notice that the numbers went from like white and they were slowly getting more and more orange?
Did not see that.
I did notice that.
Okay, maybe there is.
I mean, they were talking about something like unlocking the power and those that came before us, and all of that. But I didn't see that ever tie in any way into the game.
Yeah.
So our last one up this week is Happy. And we did video on this, so you guys see it.
Happy joy.
This is a physics-ish.
Physics-ish. Wow.
Platformer. It's a variant on the roll the ball game, except the ball is a dude this time.
And he keeps rolling, regardless of whether you stay still or not. He rolls.
Yeah, so he's a happy fat guy. And you kind of roll it, and the first level has more, I want to say, roller coastery type level design.
Yeah.
The second level kind of smooths out, it seems like, but the problem is that the second level, that's it. It ends. And the game is okay, I get it, it's cute, I'm okay with, what's going on. It hasn't done anything interesting yet, and then the trial is limited.
I needed another level or a level and a half.
Right, and so it has both the problems of A, I didn't see anything in the demo that made me interested in the game. B, did you cut this short because you only have 2 more levels, and I would finish this in 3 minutes and be done.
Yeah, the art style is pretty good. It's got parallax scrolling. It's really nice looking.
There's stuff in the background if you go slow enough.
Yeah, the problem I had too was the physics seemed a bit off. Like there were some jumps that you had to make going at high speed, but it seemed like momentum worked in ways that momentum shouldn't work.
I kind of grokked it. I kind of grokked like it's
like he had no
way his physics was going.
Yeah,
and yes, he had a kind of a weight and an inertia to take into account. And so I breezed right through the levels, but I could see if you don't get that unexpected, because the game has no tutorial. It's just kind of what am I doing here? Why am I?
You can't go back to the menu.
Why am I a fat guy rolling through the forest?
It helped him because he just rolls on. He's just like, "What? I'm here. Vroom! Here I'm going." Yep. And I was like, "I don't know where I am. Can I make? I'm not certain."
Yeah, she's kind of lost and questioning surrounding, and I'm like, oh, I'm a fat guy in the forest. I must be rolling. That's what I should be doing right now.
Yeah. And if you're
This is
constantly
just like
moving,
that dream I keep that reoccurring.
if you keep moving, you apparently do fine because you've got that inertia. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that wraps up our new games of the week. Now let's do a game of the week. So we did video on Happy, Apex, Red, Moe oh, and Take Arms.
Take Arms.
Which basically, yeah, so we're not done with our new games of the week. New games of the week, Take Arms. It actually was a new game last week. We didn't cover it because it was pulled before we got to play it. It's back up because it was pulled for bugs. It's kind of a dual stick cross with the Smash Brothers. Basically, if you played ZPK, any of those, ZPK 2X or ZPK 2.9.
It's like a 2D.
But those are better. Like the James Silver ones are better. This was kind of like you can see the video. We kind of have to get off in a lot of joking and screwing around because
it's very class based. It's not like ZP2KX where you're trading out weapons all the time.
It's not exactly obvious which class does what.
Right.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be a whole lot of interesting difference among them.
There's no engineer. There's no medic. It's like
there's no local co-op or local multiplayer.
Multiplayer.
It looked like it was only online multiplayer.
I think what was so weird for me too. It seems like you have to take cover. Like you have to use that really well. It's kind of more Rainbow Six, where ZP2KX is more Halo. And I hate coming back to that comparison, but I mean, that was the first game I played, and I loved it for what it was, and this is a little bit weaker. Still,
so that ends our
really polished game.
That ends our new releases of the week. Now, all right, so we got Apex, basically those four. Those are the four running, and I'm going to say it. They're already saying it in chat, but I'm going to say it. It's Mo McCurry. I don't see Apex had plenty of issues. Red had its issues, and what else did we do video of? I forgot.
Take Arms.
Oh, Happy.
And Happy.
It's not Happy.
I'm gonna give it. I would vote Red out of.
I would go Red and then second Moe McCurry because Red looks like it's gonna be a longer game.
What does length have to do with?
If you're an RPG player, everything.
You're now valuing a game in hours.
Yeah, I mean there is several hours of Mo McCurry to solve that. I can validate that.
I know that. I saw that.
You're going to get 5 to 6 hours minimum
to make them all sparkle.
To make them all sparkling little bitches. Yes, you are.
And, lots of Band-Aids. Lots of Band-Aids. Just saying. What the hell?
Length is everything to a woman, has been suggested in the chat.
It's not everything. Motion in the ocean does count for something. But,
well, it's farther along on this than I wanted to go. Let's get back to the topic.
Let's get back to the much safer topic of Moe McCurry.
How this is safer, I do not know.
You don't
At
have
least
a win.
She's of age.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. At 30 years of age,
you don't have a win choice
age.
here this week. But yeah, I mean, compared to Red, like I don't see it. I don't see Red being.
I got voice acting and more than like 2 soundtracks.
No, there's like 12. You get all the soundtracks of the original Moe McCurry and the new one.
It's J-pop. It's remixed J-pop.
They remixed the old one, so it's remixed remixes.
Don't like J-pop.
I noticed the subtle differences in the remixed versions of the original soundtrack.
I noticed it too, but it was weird. Not as weird as.
So you're not gonna let me have this one, Dylan?
I can't. This is. I have caved before. I have caved before. On principle, and
we shall overcome.
Oh. I've caved before, and I don't think you don't want to do this. You want to forget this game ever happened.
No, you know what's going to happen?
What?
Game of the year. It's coming back, baby.
They're gonna do a number 3, and he's still gonna rate it number 1.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. So I guess I have to go. I mean, this is going to come down a vote because, I mean, honestly, like, Red for me isn't something I'm interested in going back and playing.
Yeah, and again, like, Take Arms again. Like,
And I bought MoMA Curie.
I would vote Take Arms if I hadn't played ZP2KX, and that's horribly
Well, and again,
unfair.
that was a last week game.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
doesn't really
Technically,
count, I
we
guess.
should out of week make it. Although it didn't have a chance last week because we didn't get to play it because they pulled it.
Yeah.
Developers don't pull your buggy games. How about don't put out buggy games? That's the rule.
Wait till you get done.
Because you want a shot at Game of the Week.
Well,
don't
I think
you?
Take Arms was a Uprising game.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it was probably like, hey, this is our date, and we got to go, and, was rushed for that.
Oh my
which
god,
was-
this is the most stable copy we have right here.
Go with that. So, yeah, all right, you guys. I'll remember this.
I know you
I'll
will.
remember this. The next JRPG that comes up.
And you are
No.
totally justified for that. You are totally justified for the exact same reason. I will freely admit.
All right. Adventures of Red, the Lost Temple is Game of the Week. Oh, yeah, somebody's mentioning Moe clones. There already is. It's called Bubbles. Beach Bubbles or whatever. And
the
it's a
sequel
crappy
to
version.
that came out. Well, no, I think that's a.
I mean,
oh,
like,
no, that's
Moe
a
versus
different game.
the Moe McCurry versus Beach Bubbles. Moe McCurry wins boobies down.
Yeah, there's a game there. And there's not
Yeah.
in Beach Bubbles at all.
That is true.
Like, I mean, if Moe McCurry needs to fail, like, Beach Bubbles doesn't even need to exist, you know?
needs to be stricken from the
The
history
records.
of time.
And,
we need to build a
and then
time
what else is
machine
there? There's that
to stop
Availus
it.
Dungeon or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it masks itself as going to be a JRPG, but it's really just...
There's a Pong
Chicks.
game.
Yeah, Chicks in
JRPG.
Bondage. Yeah.
There's a Pong game that I remember. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I
I
think
just remember it was kind of stupid. It was the one where like the coach was wearing the coach shirt and all they did was
backwards.
flip her
Right.
whenever you won.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yes, and the word
Saving money
coach
on
was
art
written backwards.
Cost.
They
Because
just
flipped
flipped
the
it.
sprite, yeah. In their Pong. So, yeah, alright. Congratulations to the Adventures of Red, the Lost Temple, GameMarx Game of the Week.
Controversial.
The controversial
Always
game of
a
the week.
controversy.
Anything before we head out, Colin? Anything before we sign out?
No, I think you guys got it. I think, yeah.
All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show and discussing the games with us and game design, and appreciate coming on and giving us a different perspective. I think that's pretty good on Sunburn to have that. So we might retrain some shred of credibility on this show. We'll blow it next week.
You can't accuse